Ladies and gentlemen, truth seekers, concerned citizens of a world teetering on the edge, we gather here today not out of mere curiosity or idle gossip, but out of necessity. Humanity stands at a precipice. This is not hyperbole. This is not fear-mongering. We are failing, morally, intellectually, spiritually. And while many factors contribute to this slow collapse, there are certain individuals, certain voices, who bear an outsized responsibility for accelerating this decline. One such name looms larger than most: Tony Merkel. Yes, Tony Merkel, the host of the Confessionals podcast. A man whose very brand is built upon lies, whose true allegiance lies not with the truth, but with the prophets of deception. Today, I will make the case that Tony Merkel, his podcast, and his roster of guests are not simply fringe entertainers. They are active participants in the degradation of human thought, reason, and moral compass. In fact, they are some of the most significant contributors to the failure of humanity as we know it. Let us begin with the fundamental issue. Tony Merkel does not stand for truth. He stands for whatever sells. Lies, half-truths, exaggerations, and outright fabrications. These are his currency. He dresses them up as alternative perspectives or unheard stories. But beneath the thin veneer lies the same rot, opportunism at the expense of truth. His podcast, The Confessionals, invites guests who present extraordinary claims without extraordinary evidence. Wild tales of cryptids, conspiracy theories, shadow governments, and interdimensional horrors are paraded as though they deserve equal footing with verified facts. This is not the exploration of mystery. This is the commodification of confusion. Merkel's formula is simple: sensationalize, monetize, and repeat. The truth is irrelevant if the clicks are coming in. The danger is real, but it's a danger that fills his pockets. And what of his guests? Are they innocent storytellers merely sharing their experiences? Or are they too complicit in this grand deception? Make no mistake, Merkel's guests are not selected for their credibility or integrity. They are chosen for their ability to titillate, to shock, to go viral. Many of these individuals are self-styled experts with no verifiable credentials, who prey upon the gullibility of listeners for their own self-promotion. The more outlandish the claim, the more likely they are to be featured. These guests are not brave whistleblowers. They are opportunists who thrive on the very human weakness of wanting to believe in something, anything. That makes them feel part of a grander narrative. Anna Merkel gives them a stage, not because he believes them, but because he knows you might. And in doing so, he amplifies their lies, giving them the illusion of legitimacy. You might ask, what harm does it do? It's just stories, just entertainment. But this mindset is exactly why Merkel's actions are so insidious. Every lie that is platformed weakens the public's grasp on reality. Every baseless conspiracy theory chips away at critical thinking. Every sensationalized hoax erodes trust in legitimate discourse. This isn't harmless fun. This is how societies become unmoored from the truth. When people are fed a steady diet of sensationalism over substance, they begin to lose the ability to discern fact from fiction. Science is questioned. History is rewritten. Authority is undermined. Not in the noble pursuit of accountability, but in a nihilistic rejection of expertise itself. And this is the legacy of Tony Merkel and the Confessionals, a fractured populace unable to agree on basic truths. Susceptible manipulation, honor vulnerable to grifters, con men, and demagogues. Merkel himself may hide behind the thin excuse of being a platform for stories, claiming no responsibility for the content his show propagates. But this is cowardice masquerading as neutrality. When you give a megaphone to falsehoods, you are responsible for the echoes. Merkel knows this. He knows the algorithms reward controversy, that outrage fuels engagement, and that the more divisive the content, the more lucrative the result. His podcast thrives on this ethical rot. He does not challenge his guests. He does not demand evidence. He does not correct falsehoods. Because doing so would disrupt the money-making machine. The appearance of being an open-minded host is merely a marketing tactic, carefully cultivated to disarm criticism while continuing the relentless peddling of disinformation. This is not journalism. This is not investigation. This is exploitation. Tony Merkel is not the disease. He is a symptom, a particularly aggressive and visible one. But understanding his impact helps us see the larger sickness infecting humanity. the elevation of spectacle over substance, of narrative over nuance, profit over principle. We live in an era where attention is currency, and truth is often too inconvenient to be profitable. Merkel's podcast is a shining example of this toxic economy. His success is a mirror, reflecting our collective failure to prioritize discernment over dopamine hits, wisdom over wild tales. But while Merkel is a symptom, he is also an accelerant. By choosing to profit from deception, he exacerbates the very problems that are dragging humanity toward intellectual ruin. This is why we must hold Tony Merkel accountable, not out of personal vendetta, not out of spite, but because allowing figures like him to operate unchecked is a moral abdication. We must demand higher standards from content creators. We must reject the false equivalence of giving both sides a platform when one side is demonstrably false. We must foster critical thinking. I promote evidence-based inquiry and shun the seductive simplicity of convenient lies. And we must recognize that the battle for humanity's future is not just fought in governments or academic institutions. It is fought in podcasts, in social media feeds, in the subtle shaping of narratives that influence how people see the world. Merkel's reach may not seem as vast as mainstream media giants, but the depth of his influence within his niche is profound. In an age where niches drive cultural movements, that influence matters. In the end, this is a moral question. Tony Merkel has chosen profit over principle. His guests have chosen notoriety over honesty. And his listeners, many of them in good faith, are being led astray, further fragment an already fragile collective consciousness. But the choice is not his alone. The choice belongs to all of us. Do we continue to indulge in the comfort of conspiracies, the thrill of the unbelievable, even at the cost of our shared reality? Or do we take a stand for truth, however uncomfortable or unprofitable it may be? Merkel represents a crossroads. One path leads deeper in the quagmire of misinformation, where reality itself becomes subjective and nothing can be trusted. The other path is harder, less glamorous, but vital, the path of intellectual rigor, ethical responsibility, and a genuine commitment to truth. History will judge us, not by the number of podcast downloads, not by the virality of clickbait episodes, but by the integrity of our discourse, the resilience of our critical faculties, and our willingness to confront uncomfortable truths. Tony Merkel has made his choice. He stands not for enlightenment, but for exploitation, not for truth, but for traffic, not for humanity's betterment, but for his own enrichment. And in doing so, he's played and continues to play a major role in the failure of humanity. The question is, will we allow him to succeed? Now, to be fair, Merkel is not the only one who has tried to get your money for these lies. There are a number of people who are lying to you to get your money. Right off the top of my head, another name that comes to mind is a person known as Robin McCrae Haynes. She is something else. She is a self-proclaimed expert in the cryptid community. Robin claims that Bigfoot and Dogman and cat people and every other cryptid known to mankind go to her house for a coffee. You don't believe me? Nah, and then go listen to a podcast she is on. Go see for yourself. You might ask, how do you know that these people are lying? Were you there? And my answer will be, I know they are lying because I'm not an idiot. I am not stupid. I am sorry to say that if you believe these people, then maybe you should go get checked out by a head doctor. Just saying. I've had enough. We live in a time where truth is no longer sacred, where the loudest voice isn't always the wisest, and where lies are dressed up as entertainment, insight, or revelation just to make a quick buck. The worst part, the people doing this know exactly what they're doing. The podcast hosts, the so-called researchers, the self-proclaimed truth seekers, and their parade of guests. They're not interested in truth. They're interested in attention, in clicks, in money. And it's time someone said it plainly. Many of these people are liars. They tell tales they don't believe. They sell stories they can't support. They prop up each other's nonsense just so they can all climb the ladder together. Even if it means stumping on your intelligence and your trust on the way up. People like Tony Merkel and his platform, The Confessionals, are perfect examples. A show that claims to give voice to the mysterious and the hidden has become a breeding ground for deception. I've listened. I've studied. I've cataloged the nonsense, from guests claiming to fight monsters in another dimension, to being sucked into paintings, to surviving apocalyptic battles in invisible realms. None of it is about sharing personal truth. It's about making you believe just enough to open your wallet. And don't think he's the only one. There are many more like him. More shows, more channels, more creators, and every one of them lining up to sell you a new lie in different wrapper. If it's not shadow people this week, it's time travelers next. If it's not Nephilim, it's portals in the woods. All with no proof, no accountability, and no shame. What they count on is your curiosity, your fear, your desire for something more than this world seems to offer. They exploit that. They prey on it. But when the questions get tough, when someone calls out the inconsistencies or pushes for clarity, these people are the first ones to cry fall. They scream attack, censorship, or spiritual warfare, as being called out for lying is some kind of persecution. They want to play victims when they get caught, but they're the ones who willingly built their platforms on falsehoods to begin with. And to all those people who think they're safe because they have flown on the radar, I'm watching. I'm listening. I'm documenting. I will out every last one of you. If your success is built on deception, your fall is only a matter of time. The truth doesn't need a Patreon. It doesn't need staged interviews or dramatic sound design. The truth stands on its own. You've made a business out of lies, but some of us still stand for what's real, and we're not going anywhere. Not until every last fraud is exposed.